Hey everyone, this is Dr. Casey Johnson. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to the Unlock Wellness podcast. I know you're going to love today's episode with Dave Windsor. Dave is doing some amazing work, so I'm excited to have him on to share a story with you guys. If you've been loving the Unlock Wellness podcast, be sure to jump onto iTunes, subscribe, and write a review. It really helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate all of the feedback and support. Also, be sure to follow me on social media to keep up with the latest podcast episodes. The best way to connect with me is on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. My username across the board is at Dr. Casey Johnson. That's DrKaseyJohnson. You can also check out my website at drcaseyjohnson.com. It has all of the past podcast episodes and more information about each guest under the Listen tab. While you're on my site, be sure to check out the Shop tab, where you can check out my first book of my Healthy Children's Book series and learn about the Unlock Wellness Project, which supplies a wellness bag to a child in need for each book purchased. Thank you again for listening. I hope this episode leaves you feeling inspired to start making positive changes to your health. Now it's time for today's episode. I hope you love my conversation with Dave Windsor. Welcome to the Unlock Wellness Podcast. I'm Dr. Casey and excited for today's guest. I'm here with Dave Windsor. Dave has transformed his health and life with a raw vegan diet and is just doing some amazing work in the plant-based community. So I'm excited to have him on to share a story with you guys. So Dave, thank you so much for taking time to come on. I'm excited to have you.
Hey, Casey. I'm just so grateful for you having me on the show. Just excited to, talk about everything.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be amazing. I love the work that you're doing. And before we jump into it, Dave, why don't you talk about your backstory a little bit? First off, where you're from and what your health and wellness looked like growing up as a kid.
All right, so I grew up in Severn, Maryland, as a suburban area and kind of south of Baltimore. And I grew up there starting around age 5, where my dad finally last stationed in the military. And, growing up, we just ate the standard American diet, but not too much going out. My parents loved to cook, and they always made sure I ate my vegetables. But I still ate just the normal, meat, potatoes, rice. And my mom's also from the Philippines, too, originally. So she would cook her Filipino food, which consumed meat and basically rice. Not too many vegetables. They don't like eating a lot of vegetables. But my dad made sure we ate our vegetables. And then they eventually got a little bit more conscious because my dad's real picky, and we eventually started eating more organic foods. But just like any family in the United States, we kind of we went out and had fast food occasionally and went out at restaurants. So that kind of happened. But I also played basketball growing up, like all the time. I played travel AAU basketball and played high school basketball. And, eventually got a scholarship to play Division II college baskall. That's awesome. Growing up, I was always, I wasn't too worried about what I ate, even though I probably should have been, just because I was young. I felt good. When you're young, you think you'd eat whatever you want. I always looked good aesthetically. And basically, you're always told as an athlete, you got to eat meat for protein. You got to do a bunch of whey protein shakes and, protein. So that's basically what I was kind of worried about growing up. Was just, making sure I got my protein in, and especially when I got into college and, I had to put on some more weight, when I really got into like my man body and was starting to lift more, that's all I was really worried about was, how much protein am I getting? And then I was lifting hard. And then I eventually got into veganism after I finished playing college basketball. And that kind of happened because I was always somewhat health conscious. That lingered on just from my family because my dad was into organic foods and he eventually got like gluten free. So basically I always had this wish just to find a perfect diet almost that kind of just worked for me, that was clean. So I just started researching stuff. And, I was basically playing around with certain diets, like just, always cooking at home, even if it was like, meat and dairy. but eating more vegetables and just, like brown rice and things like that. And basically, I eventually came across veganism. I was like, oh, this is interesting. I have an open mind anyway. So like I was looking at it, and some of it was making sense. Some of it was just like I was still in my head about meat and protein and certain nutrients and those foods. I was like, basically it didn't stick with me at first, but I still was doing my research, and I started basically doing research of all aspects of veganism. So I got into the environmental and like the ethical and animals. And I eventually got to the point where like I made the connection with the animals. So I had went vegan for the animals and kind of put health to the side. I was still interested in it, but I really got into, okay, maybe we shouldn't be eating animals. And I remember, I think it was one Father's Day a few years ago. Basically, my dad, for Father's Day, he loves going to this restaurant, Ruth Chris. They had like the expensive steaks. And basically, I had watched like a video, like an animal rights video or something. And when I started eating the steak, it just didn't sit right with me. Like I had finally kind of made the connection there. So like, from that moment on, like I was like, okay, I'm taking this vegan thing seriously.
Man, once you make that connection, it's insane. Like you can't come back from it.
You can't ignore it anymore.
You can't.
So basically, when I went straight to vegan, I didn't watch any kind of like documentaries on like what the health or what the hell haven't came out yet, but like Forks Over Knives and things like that, or Cowspiracy. It just made sense. So, and then I came across these videos and it just kind of like solidified what I did. But I still didn't have really any idea how I should be eating. So I was just I was actually doing it decent, like real decent. I kept it like almost whole food plant-based from the beginning, because I was just doing this like, rice and beans and potatoes and vegetables. And it was just real simple. Like I actually was like putting on muscle, because at this time I had stopped playing college basketball. So I wasn't as active as when I was playing. Because like, when you're playing at a high level, at the collegiate level, I mean, that's kind of like your life. Like you're working out almost every day.
Metabolism is going to stay up regardless at that level.
Right. No, for real. Like it's very easy to kind of stay in good shape, especially if you have the, genetic body for it too. So, I mean, I lost some muscle mass after I finished playing, just because I just wasn't lifting. And so I was still working out a lot, but not at the same level. And so I wanted to get back at that level. So right when I started eating vegan and like working out hard again, I had got back to the weight I was when I was playing college ball, same muscle mass too. Because my senior year playing, I was around maybe like 185, 186, but like I was built, like I was ripped, cut up. And then after I played, I dropped down like around like a little under 180. I feel like that's kind of like my normal range weight anyways. But when I first went vegan, I built back up to like 185, because it was the summertime, and I had vacations lined up, and you wanted the beach body.
Right.
So I built up very quickly, like on the vegan food. So I was like, this is easy. Like this makes a lot of sense. And a lot of my peers were impressed too. They're seeing that I still look good aesthetically. I mean, it's crazy.
Like protein deficient, like you were good to go.
Right. And that's when I started sharing my journey. And then, but I was still focused on health. Like I knew there was like levels to this. So basically I saw like people on Instagram. One would be I Am the Vegan Trainer and Chaka Bars. And they weren't raw vegans. They were just eating like a lot of fruit. And I saw like a couple other people just eating like more fruit to carb up. Like, I was hearing about the high carb craze, like, increase your carbs, but instead of like pastas and rice and potatoes, they're just eating more fruit. So I was like, oh, this is interesting. This seems, I like fruit and it seems pretty clean. So I gave it a go, just sticking with the open mind. So I started eating like an all fruit breakfast, because I heard that's the best time to eat fruit, because it's very cleansing and you want to eat the most cleansing and water-rich foods in the morning. So I started eating the all fruit breakfast, and I felt so light. so energized in the mornings. And I was like, oh, wow. And then I eventually kicked it up to like an all fruit lunch too. So I was eating just like for breakfast, I would eat just like oranges, apples, strawberries, just simple fruits like that. And this is all while I'm in grad school as well. And then for lunch, I would just eat like, 6, 7 bananas. And then my friend who had gone vegan recently was saying, oh, maybe you should look into going fully raw or, look into raw veganism. And at that point, I really didn't have like any clue like this was like a thing. Like I've seen like maybe like memes or like something on Instagram about being fully raw, but I didn't put 2 and 2 together like this was like possible.
Right.
Because it's eating fully raw is like a totally different way than how we're accustomed to eat, and it's a totally different diet just because it's the only diet where you're not cooking food.
Yeah, you have to be okay with eating like a large quantity of those things. I think if people hear you saying like your meals just now, they think, man, I would starve, but you're not just eating one apple or one, like you said, like one banana. Like he's eating quite a bit because you still have to get his caloric demands to get to the weight that he wants to go, but it's just all fruit, right? So I mean, you're eating like a lot of fruit.
Yeah, exactly. Like a meal for me, just like in banana terms, is easy. Like I would eat like anywhere between 6 and 12 bananas. That's a meal.
Yeah.
But so again, like fruits are less calorie dense than a lot of our other foods. So you have to eat more volume. Like you need to eat more bites to get the same amount of calories, the same amount of carbohydrate that you need to, fuel your day. And so, my friend was saying, oh, you should look into raw foods. And basically, it didn't make too much sense. I was like, okay, maybe I'll put this off till after I finish grad school because I wasn't making too much money because I was also coaching as well. I was a graduate assistant coach. So I was coaching. So I wasn't making too much money, but I finally was like own place. Like I wasn't on campus eating calf food. And so I was able to buy my own stuff. And I was like, I don't know if I could afford like, all this fruit or all this organic, healthy food. But again, I made it happen just by like, I would like take fruit from the calf because, you pay $5 and it's like a buffet. So like they had a little fruit stand. I just take all the fruit.
Where did all the mangoes go?
Right. So when I started doing my research, I finally came across this book, The 80-10-10 Diet by Douglas Graham. And that was just a great kind of like foundation to just help me realize, okay, this is like, it makes sense that, we can just live on a fruit-based diet, eat a great quantity of leafy greens and, maybe add some nuts and seeds, but, nothing cooked, nothing processed, and not only survive, but thrive. And I was just so inspired by that. I don't follow 80-10-10 like 100% right now, but it was just a great foundation for me to, start my raw food journey.
What are the basis or the rules for 80-10-10?
80-10-10, the raw vegan diet is, well, the 80-10-10 stands for the macronutrients. So you got at least 80% of your calories coming from carbohydrates, no more than 10% of your calories coming from fat, and no more than 10% of your calories coming from proteins. So to do that, it has to be a high fruit diet. Because when we look at fruit, just the macronutrients of a fruit are so similar to 80-10-10. They all fall in the 80-10-10 just about. They're all like over 80% carbohydrates, and, they're both lower than 10% fat and protein. And then, of course, you add the leafy greens, but the leafy greens aren't caloric dense enough to shift you out of it, no matter how much leafy greens you eat. And then you want to keep it low fat too, so you don't want to overdo the overt fats if you're following the 80-10-10. And it's also you're not cooking anything. It's all just straight from nature. Fruit, vegetables, and nuts and seeds. And it seems very restrictive, or like you don't have much variety, but you really do. It's so much abundance in this lifestyle.
Yeah, and I'm sure it forces you to get creative with stuff too, or like you were saying, figure out how, if you're a college student, figuring out, okay, like there's fruit in the cafeteria, you can make it work. There's always a way. It's just kind of like figuring out how you can do it to the best of your ability.
Right. No, I definitely believe that. Like, if you really commit to something, you can make anything happen. It continues to unfold for me. Even like when I was in grad school, not making enough money, like, I didn't think I was going to be able to make this lifestyle happen and make the sacrifices needed. But if you're committed to it, it happens. So basically, I was like eating pretty healthy. Like when I first went vegan, I wasn't even eating like vegan junk food. Like I wasn't eating like sweets or anything. I think the first sweet I had, like it was like a vegan cupcake, and it was like 5 months into being vegan. So like I was eating just like, just a rice and beans diet for like the longest time. And then like I'd eat the tofu and everything. But then I got into raw foods, and a big shift had happened. Like the mental clarity just increased. My energy was good. Like when I was playing college basketball at the time, I always had these aches and pains. I struggled with like a lot of nagging injuries, tweaking ankles, knees, like back and hip pain. I was always at the I was always at the chiropractor.
Hey,
always.
I like that.
Yeah, I know you're into it. You're into the chiropractic practice. So I was always there. I was always like inflamed. So when I started eating the raw food, like those pains like went away. I didn't have them. I don't have them anymore. Like my body is the best it's felt ever eating a raw foods diet. And another thing to bring up was that I was a huge partier in college. Like I, boozed hard, like blacking out, every weekend. Me and my boys, we were partying, heading to the bar, heading to parties. And then basically, I mean, I could say I had a slight alcohol addiction. Like every weekend I was doing it. I just thought it was normal, and I just didn't know how to have fun or how to live life without kind of like, drinking every weekend. And when I got into raw foods, the urge to drink just went away. Like I didn't even like try to quit. Like it wasn't like ever in my mind, like, okay, I had a problem and I had to, stop drinking. I was just like, okay, I got into health and it just didn't make sense to drink anymore. And, a lot of my friends were still trying to party and go out. But I kind of just stayed to myself, especially in this phase. I did a lot of self-healing through raw foods, which kind of made me just stay to myself and just explore myself in a way. And that's just a big breakthrough that kind of happened in my life, because when I dropped the alcohol, unintentionally too, like so many things just opened up mentally and spiritually. And I just figured out kind of like where I wanted to go in life. I didn't just want to go the traditional path. And now I just focus on self-care and like self-healing now.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, I think it's really cool when I, hearing stories like that, and like it's one of those things you hear it so much that it's not a coincidence, just how when you do change your diet, or whenever you're adding more raw foods into your diet, or just more vegetables or fruit in general, it's like, I mean, it really raises your vibration. It really increases your self-awareness. And then like people are able to make just some like crazy life transformations. And it's even cooler when it's done like yours, like unintentionally, because then that kind of like confirms that it's working, because it wasn't like you went into it saying like, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm not going to want to go out anymore. You know what I mean? So it's just like, it's cool, the self-awareness that comes from it.
Most definitely. Just like when you're eating those high vibe foods, you're gonna vibrate higher. You're gonna want to not say do better, like I don't regret anything I did in the past.
Right.
It's like I had so much fun in college. I had so much fun doing what I had to do, but I knew I had to go through all of that to be where I'm at right now. And it's easy to look at your past and saying that's like, oh, that was a dark place or a bad spot, but you needed that darkness, or you needed those events to happen to bring forth light in your life. And that's going into more the duality of, existence.
Right.
If we could say.
Yeah, no, I love that. And So when you started making all of those changes, you started feeling better, like you said, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Like, when you went fully raw, like the weight stayed good, right? The strength stayed good. Everything was the same, basically, except for increased energy and increased vibrancy from vegan to raw vegan. Or did you notice, did you notice anything like physically?
Yes. So I actually did lose weight when I started eating fully raw, but when I started getting the fully raw, my idea of health changed. It wasn't more so about aesthetics and like, just brute strength. Cause like I was in a place where I was focusing on more so like myself and like emotions and inner healing at this
Mhm.
time. So my whole mindset completely changed at this point. So I wasn't necessarily as active as I was when, like, say I first went vegan or back when I was in college. So I was, you know, I was like, when I learned about raw foods, that's like all I was like focused on. So like I was diving into the research. I was, perfecting my craft in a sense, like learning how to eat this way, because it's not an easy transition at all, especially when you're living in a cooked food world.
Right.
Eating fully raw, like we are conditioned just to eat a certain way. So when you have to shift to a totally different perspective on food, and a lot of it is mental, your mental perspective on it is not even like, okay, I'm gonna get these foods and just eat them.
Right.
Because again, like there's so much abundance of food around you, and most of it it's more so cooked foods because we got the more convenient foods because that's how we're almost kind of programmed to kind of set out for convenience.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of break through in a way. So basically, I wasn't like completely shunned my social life. I was still decently social at this time too. But again, I took a lot of time to myself to kind of figure out, okay, how am I going to eat this way, make my health a priority, but also, be of service to, the people in my life.
Right.
And basically, I did lose some weight. I was probably around like 175, and that's where I was for a good while, until I got back into training hard again about maybe a year after I went fully raw. Because I was still learning, like, how much food I needed to buy. I was still learning about the change of seasons with fruit, because the change of seasons will mess you up. Like, you're so used to eating this fruit. Uh, like, say you're eating mangoes and watermelon all summer, and then the season changed real quick to fall, and then there is no more mangoes and watermelon at decent
Right.
price that don't taste good. And like, okay, what are you going to do next? And then you realize, okay, we got the grapes, we got figs. Persimmons are coming.
Yeah, I've been seeing you killing the grapes. I like it.
Yeah, I went on a grape fast for 14 days. I loved it.
Ooh, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I just had to work through some beginning challenges at first. So my like fitness wasn't like a top priority. It was more so inner healing and, learning how to eat this way. And I really got into emotional eating too. Like, I learned about how my emotions were connected to the foods I'm eating currently and the food that I say may be craving, and how all that affects me.
That's interesting. What did you find that were some of your like trigger foods, I guess?
So whenever we're all emotional eaters, we don't realize how emotionally attached and connected we are to the foods we eat.
Oh, for sure.
In good and bad ways,
Yeah.
like, so, whenever I was, say, like stressed or anxious, like I would want something more dense, like, like, so cooked food dense, and maybe some greasy foods or anything. And I really felt the raw foods help kind of expose that, because if we don't have a new frame of reference, we're always submitting to our emotional desires through food unconsciously. We don't realize that we are emotional eating. So that's why most people don't feel like they're emotional eating, but they really are. Like, when they're stressed or they're eating out of boredom or all of that, it's all tied to our emotions. And I also, when I was, say, eating healthy, I was eating fully raw, just things just started to flow. And basically I was more emotionally open in a sense. A lot of people talk about raw foods and say they're more sensitive when they start eating raw foods. And that always I mean, that's partly true. Like, I don't like the way that's put because when you say you're sensitive, it's like you're always kind of like in your feelings when you eat raw
Right.
food. But that's not how it is. I mean, you're just no longer numbing yourself when things happen.
Yeah.
Like when you're stressed out or you're sad, or which a lot of people are living in this state of repetitive and constant stress and anxiety. So they do feel like that's all coming at them because that's all they're used to. And we're almost taught that like we always have to be in a state of being stressed and
Yeah.
anxious. And so, when people start getting raw food, those emotions will hit hard. Like when you start physically detoxing, when you eat these foods, you're going to start physically detoxing. That's another challenge you got to get used to because you're going to be eating more fruits and vegetables. And again, what is that going to make you do? You're going to use the bathroom more often at first. And then, you have other symptoms too, depending how deep you go into detox. But when you physically detox, you also emotionally detox as well. So emotions are going to come up. And I basically learned how, okay, you had to kind of cope with these in different ways other than food, not necessarily, numbing ourselves through the foods. And a lot of times you just got to live through these emotions and let them pass. And then, of course, the good emotions come too. And to see a lot of people don't realize that they also numb good emotions too, like happy. Like sometimes when we're happy, we want to almost numb ourselves because we don't feel as though we should be this happy. So a lot of times, like you hear people say, "Oh, I'm afraid to be happy or get what I want because it'll be either taken away from me or I'll lose it or I won't be happy again." And that's part of it because we feel like we have to numb ourselves when we get this happy instead of just accepting that we're this happy and allowing that. And that's what the raw foods do. The raw foods don't necessarily. The way I like to put it, like raw foods is a tool. Like any diet is a tool. Like even if you're eating whole food plant, it's a tool to clear the mind, to allow things to happen. They're not necessarily doing things in a sense. They're not necessarily making you happy. Like happiness is something you create. So these foods are just allowing that to happen. It's keeping the mind clear, so you're just not getting in your own way.
I
If
love
that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. And it's interesting because, the way you're describing eating, it sounds like you're describing meditation, which makes them sound like hand in hand. It's like,
Right.
like clearing the mind of certain emotions and being okay with letting the thoughts pass. And like, that's basically, it's cool how they like intertwine like that because it's true.
Right. You want to live life in this meditative state. You want things to flow. You don't want to get in your own way. And again, meditation itself is also a tool. It's not like the dogma or the end all be all. Your goal is to meditate every day. No. What are you using meditation for? You don't want to just sit in a cross-legged position your whole entire life. That's not what life's about.
Right.
And like you don't want to be obsessed with raw foods or obsessed with, the way you eat. You want to use these in a way to live your life and just a more clear-minded state, a healthier state, and a happier state.
No, I love that. No, it's very well said. And, because you are helping a lot of people now with going on a raw vegan diet, like, what do you think are the main struggles that new people have when they're doing it? Is it just, just not getting enough calories or maybe kind of getting a little nervous whenever they're out like with their friends, or like, what do you think the main struggles are whenever people are deciding to make that lifestyle change?
Right. I mean, a big one is the calories, getting enough food, like eating enough food. Because again, you're eating less calorie dense foods. I mean, most people are coming from the standard American diet. So they're coming from a ton of processed foods, heavily oiled foods, fried food that are real caloric dense. So, you can just, one hamburger that fits your hand is, how many every calorie? I'll just say 700 calories.
Right.
But then we're trying to get that same amount of food in, say, apples. Just throw apples out there. Like, apples maybe like 60, 80 calories.
Right.
So one apple fits your hand too.
Right.
So to get the same amount, you got to eat 6, 7, 8 apples.
Right.
And again, that all doesn't fit in your hand just like the hamburger does. So you got to eat more volume. And that's the initial challenge too, because a lot of people always tell me, "Oh, I can't eat all that fruit at once because I get full before eating enough calories." And people don't realize like the stomach is also a muscle. The stomach is meant to stretch, and we've been eating more caloric dense foods for such a long time. Our stomach is shrunk to not our normal size.
Right.
So, when we start eating raw foods, we had to almost train our stomach to eat more.
Do you recommend like smoothies for somebody like that, or do you recommend actually eating it to stretch the stomach to adapt, or do you think both are pretty beneficial?
Yeah, both are pretty good. Smoothies is definitely a great way too, especially for someone who wants a kind of little more variety. Like I'm big on mono meals, and I felt like the best way to go about it, in my experience, and some other people's experience too, is to keep it as simple as you can. The raw food diet is a very simple diet. Like we're used to coming from so much variety. Like we're eating so much different ingredients in a meal, and a mono meal is when you eat one fruit for one meal, like one kind of fruit for a meal. So like I would just eat bananas for a meal, or I would just eat mangoes, or I'd just eat half a watermelon. That's a mono meal.
Right.
And that the benefits to a mono meal, there's a lot of benefits too. I mean, of course, it's logically it's easier to digest and assimilate and break down one ingredient, one food, than it would be multiple foods. Because when it hits the stomach, your body has to make decisions. It has to use different enzymes to break it down. And when you eat one food, it's just like, oh, just mangoes. This is easy.
Right.
And also you have a more natural sense of satiation when you're eating one food too. So when we're eating multiple foods in one sitting, we're eating a little bit of this. And then we put something new in our mouth, it re-stimulates the body, it re-stimulates the tongue, it re-stimulates the digestive system. So it's like, oh, let me get more of this. So it's hard for the body to, tell you exactly when it's full, because you keep re-stimulating it taste wise. So you're like, oh, I want, my tongue, oh, this tastes good, I want to eat more of that too.
And then you stand up and realize you've made an awful decision. Right?
Yeah. But when you're eating just mangoes for a meal, the thing is, when you eat that first mango, it's going to taste absolutely delicious if you're eating it right. But when you get about, maybe 4, 5, 6 mangoes in, that last mango is not going to taste as good as the first mango. And that's just your natural, your body naturally telling you, oh, I'm done eating. Like I'm full. Like and when we're eating multiple foods, we kind of lose that gauge as well. That because the foods keep tasting good because we're trying new stuff.
No, that's very, very cool. And do you stay 100% raw all the time? I know you just did that cleanse, so you were, but do you ever mix in other things as well?
Right. So I'm not like a purist.
Yeah.
I'm like 99.9% raw. I've had my cooked food experiments in the past where like, okay, maybe just have cooked food, or I was being social. And also, I'll even like say if I'm trying, like I'm making kind of like raw gourmet, I'll still use like I don't know, like soy sauce, or some other stuff that aren't technically raw. And even like when we look at nuts and seeds, anyways, they're not necessarily, even when they say raw on the label, they're not like 100% raw. Like
right.
Raw nuts and seeds are moist. I mean, these are like dehydrated, I guess. But you don't know who dehydrated and at what temperature they dehydrated it at. So yeah, I'm not a purist. Maybe one day I'll just, be a purist if I'm out in the jungle somewhere, in the Philippines, and I'm just eating fruit, growing my own food, which would be nice. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Now I'd love to kind of manifest, but
that's amazing.
Yeah. So, but again, I think food is a tool. Like I know that like the vibe is me, saying it's not the foods that are making me anyway. It's only allowing me to do so. So what I've come to realize is I had big revelations about food, especially eating raw and doing these fasts, is that it's not the food that is, again, making me happy. I kind of talked about this, or, keep me at this vibration, just not get in my own way. And a lot of people who get in the raw foods, they'll kind of obsessed over it in a way, and like just like I gotta eat this way, and they don't have a great relationship with food. And this could be with any diet too.
Yep.
And a lot of people struggle with that. Their relationship with food kind of goes down So I've seen people who don't eat healthy or don't do all these meditative practices, but are at more peace than people
Yeah.
who do. And that kind of clicked with me, and it was like, how is that though? Like, you got people out here who are trying to do the right thing and, are loving the healthy foods, but aren't at peace. Like they're even struggling even more sometimes when they get into trying to change their diet or whatever. And a lot of that is their mindset. I mean, it's you. It's not the foods that is making you do this. Like if you can be eating the healthiest diet in the world, but if you don't have a healthy mind, then you're not going to be healthy.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, because thoughts make you sick, and if you're trying to eat healthy, and then your thoughts are constantly bringing you down, it's kind of counteractive, and then it's not going to work.
Right, right. So as a health coach, I kind of talk more about mindfulness and your mental approach and building healthy lifestyle habits. I'm not even like, I get into the food, of course, because I think that's a huge part and very important. But it all starts here mentally in the habits you build. Because if you don't have that healthy relationship with yourself, healthy relationship with your food, then it doesn't matter what you're eating.
100%, 100%. And like you were just talking, you do coaching. So, yeah. So why did you start coaching, and how has it been so far?
It's been real well. I mean, I just started coaching maybe about 6 months ago.
That's awesome.
And I found that I wanted to do something that I love and help others. Like, when I started eating raw, things started opening up. I didn't want to kind of live a traditional, your traditional life, just, going to the office. And not that there's anything wrong with that. If that's what you like doing, do it. But me personally, I just wanted to give more meaning to my life in a way that's helping others and something that I enjoy doing and something that just had a big impact on my life. So about 6 months ago, I had finished like my certification and, built like a program. So, I've been dealing with clients and, again, we talk a lot about mindful eating and, building lifestyle habits. So I'm more so like, I like to call myself more of a lifestyle coach instead of just like, and health coach. Cause like I'm big on making those lifestyle changes. Because everyone's big on the fad diets and just doing something for a short time, and no one can
Right.
kind of stick to what they want to do. A lot of people struggle with sticking with what they want to do and not falling back into bad habits. And it's not that these good habits are difficult or hard. A lot of people, that takes a lot of discipline. Discipline's so hard. No, not necessarily. You're just so disciplined in your bad habits. Like you practice your bad habits so often. That's why it's easy.
Yep.
Good habits are just as hard to break as bad habits. And a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, for sure. No, I love that. And again, it was very, very well said. And like, when we were talking beforehand, you were talking about the traveling that you're getting ready to do. And I'm sure just this whole lifestyle switch has really kind of triggered you to want to do that, right? So do you want to talk about the travel that you're about to do and why, and what you hope to get from it?
Yeah, definitely. So going back to the challenges, a lot of challenges people talk about, how do you go raw in the winter? How do you, when it's cold, how are you eating all this fruit and wanting to be raw and not having hot food? And, I basically tell people, you just do it or you move. You go somewhere warm. I mean, this lifestyle is you can definitely thrive more in a warmer climate. As humans, I believe we are, a tropical species. We only started moving away from the equator, several thousand years ago. But, in the beginning, we're mostly around the equator in warm weather. And even when we're in colder climate, we're still attracted to this tropical climate. We wear, clothes that keep us warm. We always want to be inside where it's warmer. When it's summertime, we always want to be outside in the sun and we enjoy it, it's because we're naturally a tropical species. And of course, our food is there too. You got the best fruits in the world down in the tropics. So I tell people move or, just suck it up, basically, or make it happen. Like, I don't want to say suck it up, but like you can make it happen. It's very possible to be raw in colder climate. I've been doing it for, years, a few years. So basically, I plan on going to the Philippines the end of this year because I want to, I want to focus on my health full time. Like, I want to get the sunlight because it's so much more things to health than just what you're eating. You want to be in the sun. You want to, be in nature. Of course, you need the clean air. You want to be around good people. You want a low stress life. So, I plan on moving to the Philippines. I actually got family in the Philippines because my mom was born and raised in the Philippines. And so I'll be staying with family out there for a while, just eating fruit, working with clients online as a health coach. And I'll also be doing a lot of traveling around Southeast Asia. That's my plan, like Thailand and Cambodia, maybe Bali. I'm leaving it up in the air where I want to go. But, first stop is just the Philippines, where I'll be able just to eat fruit and, do my yoga and meditation, do a little bit of traveling, meet new people, just have a new experience,
I love it.
I love where I'm at in Pittsburgh. I'm currently based in Pittsburgh right now, but I definitely want to continue to expand myself. And I feel like this kind of journey that I'm planning to take will definitely do that for me. It sounds exciting.
That's very exciting. I'm excited because I'm sure you're going to be documenting a lot of it, right?
Yeah, I'll be very active on social media. Lately, I haven't been as much, just because I've been, saving up. I've been doing a lot right now, preparing for this trip and saving the money. I am like working like a couple other jobs too, because like all I'm doing is working. I'm working with my clients. I'm working a couple other jobs, and definitely like I'm saving up for, a little bit, and then, I'll have my business abroad too. So I'll be back to doing my thing, just, helping others get to where they want, health goal wise.
That's amazing. No, I can't wait to watch all of it on social media and keep up with everything that you're doing. And I mean, is there anything else, Dave, like in the future that you want to put out there and share besides just to keep an eye out for your, as you
travels,
your travels or anything like that? Is there anything else you want to share? Or just continue to put out content as that gets closer and just continue to just put out as much positivity as you can?
Yeah, continue to do all that. I am working on an ebook that I definitely want to get out before the end of the year. So yeah, that's basically something to look out for. And I'll definitely start blogging more on my website. It's just my IG handle, davesilverall.com. And yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. Yeah, no, your Instagram, I'll put that on, I'll put that in the show notes. That way people can just go click and give you an ad. And yeah, guys, go check out his blog. He has recipes up on there too, which look amazing. So definitely go give him a follow. And yeah, so, Dave, just closing question that I ask every guest. But if you just had one piece of advice for the audience, maybe it's something that's been your biggest takeaway through your wellness journey so far. But if you just had one piece of advice to give, what would it be?
I love this question. A lot of things I've been working on with others, and even like my friends that are, close to me and that I kind of help out in a way, is to not be hard on yourself. Like, don't beat yourself up when, you say you fall off. Because when we're looking at self-love and self-care, like, you have to also love yourself when things aren't going right. It's easy to love yourself when everything's going right, and life's just awesome and everyone loves you. Your diet's on point, but like, how are you loving and taking care of yourself, your mind, when you fall off in certain areas of your life? So the biggest thing is, don't be too hard on yourself when you're struggling, because that's actually when you need your love the most.
100%. I love that, Dave. And just thank you so much for taking time to come on. I loved having you. I love the work you're doing. And I can't wait to keep up with your new journey coming up. It's going to be amazing. So just thank you so much.
Thanks, Casey. I'm so happy to talk to you and share my journey and just, interact with you. It was awesome.
Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you loved my conversation with Dave. He's doing so much positive work. So be sure to give him a follow on social media to keep up with everything that he's been working on. You can find his social media links that we talked about in the episode in the show notes, but you can also find them on my website as well at drcaseyjohnson.com. That's drkaseyjohnson.com. Click on the Listen tab Then from there, you'll be able to see all of the past guests that have come on the Unlock Wellness podcast, read a little bit about each guest, and be able to click on their social media links, websites, all of that. So all of Dave's information can be found on my site as well. If you guys loved today's episode with Dave, be sure to jump onto iTunes, subscribe, and write a review. It really helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate all of the feedback and support. Thank you guys so much again for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you loved it. I hope it inspires you. And most importantly, I hope you take action.